Excellent. So let's consider that we are not lost in the sea of LinkedIn and that we are with you people who came to talk and see two tagged talk, tech, and TA.
I had to make it as hard as possible for you there, didn't I?
Yeah,
You did it well.
like, in French, we have this kind of game when you're a
Tongue
child.
teasers.
Exactly. It's like she says. This is a kind of game. I gotta make you try that.
Okay, I will definitely try that. Not today.
Thank you for everybody who is with us today. We decided to tackle another topic in our talent acquisition discussion because we could see a topic rising. Actually, John came up with the idea. Told me, hey, you know that there's this thing, skill-based hiring, that I'd like to talk to you about. And I'm like, yeah, but what is it to talk about? Because I felt like skill-based hiring was, I feel like I've done that for 15 years and I didn't understand why everybody was talking about that in 2024, because this is an ongoing topic. So we got to dig deeper in it to prepare this discussion. And as always, we're going to have this discussion in public. I am Jean-Michel Caillaud, founder of Work Meetender. And how are you, John?
I'm okay. I'm ready to go after getting LinkedIn and all these technicalities sorted out.
Well,
good job. Talking about skills, do not give me a job in the Formula One, making sure that all of the screens are all connected because nobody would watch anything.
Thank you for taking care of this.
We're live now anyway.
I've actually had the opportunity to work with people who were working in the on TV backstage, with all the screen and saying, go to camera 1, go to camera 2. And these people, I imagine them like super energetic, needing to be very fast. And these are the more quiet and calm people I have ever met. They have nerves so strong. It's not like you could imagine it at all.
I imagine it's super
impressive.
intense.
So skill-based hiring. So we wanted to discuss what is it, why everybody's talking about that, and we have few ideas around it. But as people are getting interested in it, we will go through the benefits of this strategy, the changes that one might encounter as well, and also how you can implement it actually, concretely, depending on the size of your organization. There's one thing that matters when you're talking about this kind of topic, is that it always comes from somewhere. So first, what's skill-based hiring? It's literally hiring based on the skills, but it implies with a major focus on the skills, and it implies that if you focus on the skills, you don't focus on the rest as much. And so, for example, you can oppose it to hiring on cultural fit. You can oppose it to hiring while assessing soft skills, while soft skills have been like the major keywords in assessment for years now.
Yeah.
And depending on your definition of soft skills, this can mean a lot of different things. So skill-based hiring is how do you select the people who are going to work for you, with you, depending on specific skills that they have for one job or for one industry. Do you agree with this definition, John?
Yeah. I think that it's... sorry, my allergies.
So I got a spoiler for you. We recorded a few days ago. We pre-recorded another video, and it was very sunny day. So we decided to gather and go outside. And so we were outside. It was beautiful. John nearly died that day.
Honestly, my eyes. It was terrible. But no, I agree. I think the skills-based, how you described it, is exactly it. I think that it says 80% of companies. I saw this article on LinkedIn where 80% of companies have implemented skills-based hiring. And I'm like, have you really, like, what is skills-based hiring for these companies? And I think that most companies, we're doing skills-based hiring and all this type of stuff, but nobody ever seems to go deeper into what exactly does that mean? And what does it mean to be doing it properly?
So that's the thing. That's when there's a new keyword that is fashionable, we tend to adopt it and we don't dig enough into the topic. So the thing is, why are we interested in skills-based hiring now? And we were not as much interested before. First, we're going to have different perspective, you and I, because
Mhm.
you come from the UK market and I come from French market. And here, first, degrees are kind of the super thing in France. Like, we have rankings of the different schools, specific for business schools, engineering schools, universities. And if you haven't done any of these, then you might not be considered as valuable as a candidate to companies. Whereas in other markets, and I'm more comfortable to talk about it because I've been working on these markets and living in an English speaking country. Well, we don't even ask about the degrees. Like, oh, you've done a degree? Yeah, good for you, cool. So what can you do for me? It's more of the discussions.
Yeah.
So
I think this is true. It's less so in the UK. Like if you look at the States and you look at, especially living in France now, you see it's like if you don't have a certain level of education, people are just not interested in talking to you. Do you know what I mean? But the thing I found is in the UK, there is still elitist, like, you know, there's still this elitism around the top universities in the UK. When you start looking at what we call like the red brick universities, so like Cambridge,
I
Oxford,
visited this, yeah.
Imperial, they really are like a top. When I've listened to someone who went to one of these universities, and their view on why they would prefer to hire someone that went to one of these universities over another university on the same degree is that when they've been at this university, they have been doing 2 or 3 times more amount of work and a higher level of expectation than the next leading universities. They are being grilled by top level industry experts who come to lecture and debate these people at university. So I would call it, this is no disrespect to like people who went there, but there's a sense of arrogance or a sense of kind of maybe, I don't know, extra confidence, let's put it, right? That they are smarter than everyone else, which is in their particular topic, maybe not necessarily wrong, right? And if it's creating this breeding ground for people that are top in their field, but again, if you don't have that path to get there, that's where the problems start, right? And then you always end up with the same people getting access to these opportunities, and then if they keep getting the top jobs, you're never going to be able
Well,
to find these
then
other
the
people,
market
right?
proves them right.
Yeah.
But then the market makes the rules. So I understand what you're saying, but you know that's also what you can see between different types of people. It's always amazing. Some people coming from, let's say, I've met with doctorates from university who are like super knowledgeable in their field, and when you interview them, they don't show a lot of confidence, even if they could. They are always very moderate in their speech and say, yeah, that could work, but here's why that couldn't work as well when you ask them a question.
Yeah.
Whereas some other people have been taught to say, yes, I will make it work, and then deal with that later. So this is always a different kind of approach, and maybe because of the way that you are being taught to. But I think that we're going a bit off topic, but that's another
Yeah.
interesting topic about what education really brings you in 2024. Well,
But what is
I
it that? So the thing that I really wanted to talk about was what is it that skills-based hiring brings? What is it that people are so excited about? Why is it so interesting to do? Like, what opportunities are you going to get versus a company that's not focused on skills-based hiring? Right?
That's an excellent question, John. I think this is a matter of timing. You see, we come from a long-term approach when it comes to hiring people. Like, people used to stay for a long time at a company, and more and more, we see that people don't stay that much time. Of course, we will still have people who do their whole career with the same employer, but it's becoming rarer. And so you gotta to ask yourself the question: if you accept the fact that people are not gonna stay for the long term, for the long run with you, you gotta ask yourself the question: if you accept that, in the short term, that they will work with you, what can you expect from the collaboration, and on which criteria should you hire them if you want to maximize the output or the outcome?
Yeah.
Because if if you're hiring at them for the long term, you don't really pay attention to the skills. I mean, of course, if they have the skills, that's even better, but you will not hire them for specific skills on the job, because you know that 2 to 3 years from now, they will move on to another job and they will keep on doing so. And so you might rely on other things like their ability to learn along the way. There's a whole topic around that is very interesting, and we should invite some people in performance development or head of people development, because there are really interesting research on this topic. So you can focus on their ability to learn new things along the way. You can focus on the culture fit, saying we don't care the level of skills, because what matters most is that people understand how we work and fit our values. By the way, usually when we do that, we just miss the most important thing, which is communication. Do they communicate the right way? Do they communicate the way the company communicates? Like, are they more formal, informal? Do they like communication that is immediate and kind of impulsive, and like we're doing at the moment? Or do they need more thinking, and do they prefer to prepare their interactions? So these are important things that make culture fit work on that. And then you can also hire on the soft skills, saying, okay, if they have the soft skills to get along right, well, what do we mean by soft skills? Usually it's, okay, this person is able to work with other people. This person is not a complete beep with other people. Can you add a special beep effect?
I will try.
Post-production. I would love that. Like, I would feel like we're on a real live show. So, is this person able? No, it's more on a more serious note. When you talk about soft skills, there are two concepts. We talked about that once, John. There are two concepts that you can find in psychology. It's the intrapersonal intelligence and the interpersonal intelligence. We call them intelligence in the sense that we are not born. All of us are not born with the same level of aptitude on this criteria, but we can still work on it. But some people are better on it. They are better at that. So interpersonal is understanding more, being able to get into other people's shoes and understanding more easily what they mean, their emotions, their intentions. So that facilitates the interactions. And intrapersonal intelligence is more about getting to know you better, understanding why you talk the way you talk, why you make certain decisions and not other, being able to reflect on this, and just take a step back and see the big picture, which is a key skill that we're looking for. So you can look for everything of that if you are looking for the long term. But if you're looking for a short term, if you accept that you are on a labor market where people won't stay as long, then maybe you could focus mostly on hiring expert skills, because when you're talking about skills, it means that you're looking for someone who is really, really good at this job.
Yeah, but then there's there's like I don't know if it's the right thing, but it's like contextual based hiring, right? This person might be good in a particular environment, but do you know when that environment might change, right? Someone always used to talk to me about, like, as a company scales, the social complexity increases, right? Because you go from having one relationship to one relationship, very not easy because it's humans, but it's less complicated, right? It's a to and flow of communication. Add a third person, a little bit more complicated, there's two here, one here. By the time you get to 100, there is so many lines of things that can go wrong, right? And how can that person operate as it's scaling, right? And how do you test for that? Right. And this is why I think that skills-based hiring is great, but how deep into the skills do you go? Does it mean that somebody who hasn't operated in that context before can't do that job? Or do you only hire people that have done it before? Or can people who haven't operated in that operate in it? Do you see my point?
Yeah.
It's like, how do you actually test for these types of things? And I think that's one of the challenges for me to get this really right. Like, how far do you go? Right,
That's an excellent question, and I think this is a question that a lot of people don't get right. If you want to assess on the right skills, you have to understand which skills you are looking for, but not just like skills, like you said, like on a job description, but what makes that someone can be performant, successful, and happy, because that matters too. Performant, successful, and happy on a specific job. And you have to define things, not just say, like, for example, oh yeah, for this developer job, we're looking for someone who is a master of this technology and this framework and so on, and who's someone who's done 3 years of that. That's these are just requirements, but that doesn't explain why one should be performant, happy, and on on a job. So
Yeah.
you have to ask you the right questions and have the right definition. So again, it's all about preparing your recruitment right. But
Yeah.
I believe that if you do this, then you can really get into skill-based hiring.
Yeah. Okay. And I have another question for you, right? You worked in agency recruitment when you started, right?
Yes,
Yes.
I
Okay.
was
Yeah. Same.
living the life of a recruiter among a big center, talking too loud for my colleagues, so that they will have to put
Like this all the time.
a panel in front of me like that.
So
I've
that
known
is it.
that.
That is it, right? And I give an example of that. How many people do you know that were in a recruitment agency but didn't perform very well, but then went on to do very, very well inside a talent acquisition role?
Oh, quite a
I know
few.
many people like this, right? And the thing for me there, it's the skill set you need for a recruitment agency is not the same skill set you need to be in talent acquisition, right? Point number one. But the second point for me is the environment. And that's not spoken about enough. If you're not creating the right, you tend to see people in recruitment agencies. This is a massive generalization, but I'm going for it anyway. Most people who are in recruitment agencies are very extroverted, and more internal recruiters seem to be more introverted. Not all, okay, but this is what I observe
Okay, all right.
through my lens, right? So
Okay.
that environment, and it's not always set up right. And if you look at, I know you're not into your football. Oh no, do you like rugby or not?
Yeah, and I'm
No.
not
Okay, I know
much
you're
into
not really
ball.
into sport,
So
but
sorry about
but it's a psychologist. It was the chief psychologist for England rugby when they won the Rugby World Cup. Okay, you know Johnny Wilkinson, right? You must
that.
know Johnny,
Yeah,
of course, the beautiful guy. He was the chief psychologist, and when he arrived, the thing that he observed is he understood they all had the right skills, but it was the environment that was wrong. They all had different tops. The place in which they were sitting to do the analysis was not right. And the culture about giving feedback whilst they are in the room, like people turning up late, people sitting back like this. And he transformed all of that. And I think that is another whole part of the recruitment process that I think is a big challenge, because you could have all of the best skills in the world, all of the stuff, and then if you don't have the right environment for them, well, what's the point? People are not going to thrive. What?
that's very interesting point. Thank you for sharing that. But if you look at the data, like because we know what works in terms of assessment. We have studies, we have meta studies that are very
Yeah.
famous. I always have this cheat on
People
my
that don't
desk.
know that, explain what that is, because that's super
Yeah,
interesting.
this is a meta study. So it's a research paper that gathered data from 1,000. I don't even have the exact name, but thousands of other research about hiring and assessment,
Yep.
and check these numbers, exploited the numbers to understand what works in terms of assessment, in terms of type of assessment. Regarding that, you can then have kind of a predictive validity, saying like if a candidate does this kind of assessment, for example, if a candidate does structured interview, then he will have 20 more percent chances of being performant. We will have 20 more percent of chances to predict his performance compared to,
Versus not doing
let's
it.
say, graphology test, which is at 0.
Yeah. There
So
we go.
I could give you specific numbers. I can share that actually, because this is a very interesting study. This is a reference of all the studies. I mean, all the people who are doing research in work psychology are using that. So, but my point was, if you want to hire candidates, there have been lots of research, and it's difficult to go beyond 50% of chances of prediction. Like, you can just do how do you call you can flip a coin.
Yep.
Well, it's not a coin, but this is a
That's going to give you a very definitive outcome every time, that one.
that is actually, how do you call that in English? A lucky
Two-Face.
charm.
You know,
But
what's his name?
yeah. So you could flip a coin and you get the same results. Of course, you're not gonna do that because you're gonna take other things into account. But these other 15% you can't predict means that they are depending on lots of different variables and factors. So you can master some of them thanks to your development plan, your onboarding, the way you're gonna work with your new hires. But there are still lots of other things that you can't address at all. Like you say, John, the environment can be different. You can have a very top performer in one company going to a twin company that is almost similar and not being a top performer at all because the manager is not the same, the communication is not the same. So lots of other things matter. Of course, skills-based hiring can't address these questions. So the thing is skill-based hiring enough? Well, based on the data that we have, I'll be honest, when you get the data, it's not very sexy, and a lot of people are not gonna like what we have in terms of most successful predictors. But for example, intelligence tests still are the best predictor in terms of performance at work. Well, of course, we are not gonna generalize that because it's very difficult, and you don't want, to be rejected based on that, and that doesn't take into account a lot of other things. It's just that in an intelligence test, what does it assess? It assesses your ability to solve problems that comes to you in an unpredictable way. And yes, if you are able to do that, it will be a bit easier to be good at work. But where I want to go with that is that context is key, like you said, but you will never be able to master context. So this is a trade-off. If you choose skill-based hiring, you have to know what you get and what you lose along the way. But do you know companies that have been on the skill-based hiring?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some companies that have done it well and some companies that haven't done it well. I think there's a case of Accenture that tried to do this and roll this out, and they really struggled to implement it and get it working well. But surprisingly, IBM, I say surprisingly because they've not got the best reputation for this type of stuff in the market, but they actually started and did a test with an apprentices scheme that they did. And it was quite interesting because they found it worked very, very well. They managed to create they managed to index all of the skills. They gave managers training. They implemented a lot more trainings that needed to be in place for when people joined, so they could upskill a lot quicker as well. So I think in a 4-year period, it went from like 2 days worth of training up to 36 days worth of training so that people could get up to speed a lot faster. And they also found there was also a big study that LinkedIn did that showed that you had a 7% uplift in retention by implementing skill-based hiring approach as well. So
which is interesting.
Yeah, which is interesting, right?
We mentioned that that skill-based hiring is concurrent to might be concurrent to having a short-term approach, but you're saying that it improves retention.
Yeah, I mean, apparently, according to this study, but in context, right? There's it could be in larger organizations, smaller organizations. But what I did find actually when I was digging into this stuff, I told it to you just before, it was America have created this thing. Hang on, it's called the Advanced Skills-Based Hiring Act that they've tried to implement to try and remove the need to have the degree requirements or certain levels of education and instead focusing on the skills. And there's an actual act they're trying to pass right now. It's quite interesting. And there is nothing in Europe like this at all. There is nothing comparable.
No. And especially in France, we have a very blurry definition on what you can use legally as recruitment, because the definition says that you are obliged to use something that is relevant, an assessment that is relevant to the role, but the definition of being relevant to the role or not is never precise. So that doesn't really work. Okay, that's interesting. So we have 15 minutes left. How about we get deeper into giving some advices about
Okay,
what works and what doesn't?
I will reel off the challenges with this, and then we'll go into what can be done. Right?
Okay, yeah.
I'm just going to spurt some stuff out. That study that I told you about, where they were saying that 80% of the companies they researched were doing some form of skills-based hiring. 30% of them still required a degree. So it's kind of like, well, is it really doing what you want it to do? Anyway, one of the biggest things is that our culture at the moment, Western culture, is that degrees, credentials, qualifications, they are the proxies for skills, right? Like that, like in how we think about them typically. So it's a whole culture change you're going to have to do, right? This isn't just going, right, let's go skills based. Challenge number one. Challenge number two is that you need to have really good tools that are reliable, that are valid, that are not just created by a marketing company and they're just some pseudoscience behind it, right? Because there's a lot of stuff like Myers-Briggs out there, which is complete nonsense. You've then got like stuff around the infrastructure, right? So what training are you going to put in? How are you going to track this? How are you going to do continuous updating the skills? Because you can't just put the skill on there and then just leave it. You have to keep updating it continuously, right? That's that. And then you're just going to have to, they are the main challenges. Well, I could go on forever about this, but they're some of the main things that you could encounter when trying to do this. So that being said, what if you were setting up skills-based hiring today? How would you approach it? What would you do? What's the minimum viable amount of things you have to do to make it effective?
It's you have to consider two things. So we mentioned that you have to consider the definition of what you want to assess. This is really important. What do you want to assess and what does it mean? And all the people who are involved in the process, in the recruitment process, needs to agree with the same definition. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. That's the first thing. So you have to make sure that everybody agrees with that. And for that, the best thing to ask people that if we are assessing, because we're talking about skills-based hiring, but honestly, no matter what you're looking for in terms of criteria, just ask the people who are involved. Like, okay, you want someone who is good at project management. What do you intend by project management? How do you see it? And what does it mean being good in terms of level in your own mind and your own eyes? Because
exactly,
other people might have different expectations. And so you can ask these questions. There's tools that can help with that, like scorecards. So of course, like you said, a good tool is a tool that's not gonna become dusty in a mid to long term. So it needs to be a tool that is the backbone of your recruitment process. If it's a backbone, it's not a tool. It's just what you work with. So some ATS got that almost right. Most didn't get it right at all. But I know that they're working on it, improving it. You can contact us. We have ideas about that. If you're an ATS and watching this, then if you have like good definition, a tool where you can put in your assessment, and that is again a tool that doesn't require more effort that you would. Well, let's be honest. It's better to have a good definition and a good tool than having like a feedback that is just a couple of lines and saying, yeah, I kind of liked it, but I would like to see more people. All of us have heard that already. So of course we wouldn't take that for granted and we will dig deeper, but that's time, and that's time that we don't measure, but that's still lost time. So the time that we invest in the beginning make up for and we'll avoid that you lose too much time. So I would say that's the minimum. And then of course you have to train the people, but not train them on skill-based hiring, but train them on defining their skills. Because if they get the how the machine works, how do you define the right skills, and then it comes naturally to become a better at assessment. Because then you realize, oh yeah, no, but the question I'm asking doesn't really reflect the definitions that we had in mind. And
Exactly.
people are smart. So people realize by themselves, you just have to put them on the road.
Yeah,
Well, at
exactly.
least this is where I will start. And this seems like a humble start. Well, guess what? This is why it works. Because if you take a step that is too high, it's just a fight or flight reaction, and you won't want to do it. So
Yeah.
start humbly by this small step, but this small step is super, super, super important.
And I would even go back to basics first, right? If you're not doing something like structured interviews with some kind of competency based test that we know works, I would start there. I really would. That would be my advice. Start there. See if you can get into the habit of doing this, which also helps you define skills, and it's a bit of a mindset shift. Then start going into skills based hiring. That would be what I would suggest if you're really far away from that, but you're determined to want to implement it. And if you have to chuck people straight into something, that you might get a lot of resistance from people about this, right? From employees, from employers, that type of stuff. But the benefits of getting this right are you won't have to lay off as many people, because when times are hard, you can maybe use those people's skills in another way and utilize them in a different way. It might mean that you might be able to give fair career paths, because people are demonstrating the skill sets that they've got now, and being able to identify opportunities for even career changes within inside the business, rather than losing good people that are going to learn and train and grow and go somewhere else. You could create the opportunities internally for that internal mobility piece. And I think it would really help when you're in larger organizations about workforce planning. I mean, if you know the skill set of your the population that you've already got, and then you know what skills people are going to need in the future, right? I imagine there was a ton of people in workforce planning that could see the wave of AI coming, and competency within that. And I bet they were screaming at their teams, "Come on, this is coming, this is coming, this is coming!" And people could have been a bit more prepared, because there are going to be more and more skills that are going to be coming and emerging, and everything's going so quick. That's why workforce planning is going to be more and more important. So if you are set up well for skills-based hiring, I can see the benefit of that. So I'm not on any fence of don't do it or do it. I'm going to say do it if you've got the right context and skills to do it now. I'm really British. I'm on the fence on this one. I'm still not
That's
sure.
surprising of you.
I know.
For once.
I'm unconvinced either way if it's like the right thing to do. And again, everyone's saying do it or don't do it, and I'm like, what context you're in is more important, right? Choose what to do depending on the context you're in.
I get that. No, that's a great point. Well, I am a bit more Prussian than you are for once, if I may say so. Let me be French. No, honestly, I think the skills-based hiring can bring a lot to the table. But yes, like you say, the context is important, and the context is changing. The context is evolving, and it's evolving scary fast. Like, I've wrote a blog post on AI 3 months ago, and 20% of it is not valid anymore. No. It's been 3 months. I've delivered 3 days ago a training on using ChatGPT in recruitment that I know is not going to be a workshop that is going to be last for long. It's going to need to get updated like every month, I think. The issue that we have, AI is not going to replace any job. It's just going to average the market. If you are just expecting people to do the job thinking we are a machine, we are a big company, and so if we have someone who is good enough, they will get involved in the machine and it will just work by itself, which is how a lot of companies work. Yes, but with the incoming changes with AI means that we're going to average the market, and all the people who have skills below that average will need to, they will be in trouble. They will need to address this topic and get better. But all the people who are really good at what they do, who can be experts, who are skilled, because when we talk about skilled people, these are not the people who can do the job. These are people who are known to be good at the job. People that when you see them work, you say, yes, this person knows what they do. So this person, for this type of people, skill-based hiring is a good idea. For other kind of jobs where you know like you're not even sure that the job will still exist in 3 years, then you might not want to address that. So, and maybe focus on other topics. So I would say that first, that skill-based hiring shouldn't be used on any position in a company, and it should be decided depending on the kind of profiles that you are looking for, depending on the, let's say, the horizon of existence on a specific role and its specific needs. That's the first thing. And second, even if you use it, it's not enough, because how many experts are very sad and bored in companies that don't resemble them because they don't communicate the same way. They came for something that they got promised to, but they didn't find it when they arrived. So skills, being good at what you do, don't make you happy.
Yeah.
It's not enough. So you can't assess only on this. So again, I will conclude on my side with that. Skills-based hiring can bring a lot to the table, and especially because it structures your recruitment process anyway. So if you do that, you're gonna get better at recruitment anyway. But you shouldn't use that for just any position. You shouldn't use that globally for all the position. Even if you use it, you can't just focus on skills only. It's not enough.
Yeah.
And I will rest my case.
No. I don't disagree with you on that, to be honest. I don't feel strong enough to argue against this. But I do think, just to conclude on that, I do think that some people are living in this utopian world where they think they can actually implement this, and they can't even get funnel metrics right, or even get feedback from like candidates and from the hiring managers, you know? So it's like, sometimes let's focus on the smaller things, right? It's this problem with TA again. It's like justifying why we're in the job. But if you do the basics first, build from a good base, and then everything else falls into place, you know? It's like we talk about AI. Without data, the AI is useless, right? It's the same for everything, right? So get the plumbing in. We call that in systems thinking. The plumbing is important first, and everything else can be built. You can't have a bath unless you've got all the pipes in play, you know?
Yes, and especially if you want to like go through a major change, like changing your recruitment, your way of doing things in terms of recruitment or any other HR regarding topic anyway. You need to set up the data and be able to follow it, to know if you're on the right path or not. Because you know, again, it's not like a kitchen a cookie recipe that if you follow the rules, it will always be the same. No. Your company is not the same oven as the neighbor.
Which is why recruitment goes wrong all the time. When tech founders, I'm putting this out there, when tech founders think they understand recruitment and treat it like a product that can be scaled. Recruitment can't truly be scaled. Like, there are processes that can be scaled, but each individual one has its own unique problems. So you can't have the same approach to every single job, which why it becomes a problem and it becomes a pain, because it doesn't operate like a product or a tool or something like that, because humans are involved. It's the problem.
Yes, and anyway, you've done a very interesting podcast on considering the recruitment as a product approach, if I remember.
Exactly.
So you should go and check on the Holistic Recruiter podcast from John Hazelton, which is very interesting and a lot of brilliant guests. So let's end on this. Thank you to everybody. You can find us on LinkedIn. So John has a Holistic Recruiter podcast we just mentioned. You can find me on the blog of WorkMeetender, workmeetender.com, and also on the newsletter recruitment.substack.com, which goes every Friday morning and is in French. So you have to do like John and translate.
It's just, there's a little tool you can use. It's very cool. I'll share it. It's just Google Translate on the little widget. Click it and you can read everything.
Excellent. You just lose some French finest jokes, but you can't have everything. Thank you for your time, John. It was
you too, buddy.
Very
pleasure as usual. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.